North Atlantic, February 1943. The sea is black and endless, a frozen wilderness broken only by the pale glow of convoy lights bobbing in formation. Beneath the waves, a German U-boat listens, engines silenced, periscope rising like a steel ghost through the storm. The men inside are confident. They've done this before. Dozens of Allied merchant ships have already fallen to their torpedoes. Easy prey, slow, unarmed, helpless silhouettes against the Atlantic night. But tonight, something feels different. From above, the steady hum of engines fills the void. Low, rhythmic, unbroken. It's not the nervous sputter of an old freighter. It's a new sound, stronger, deliberate. The U-boat commander peers through the periscope, expecting another lumbering cargo vessel. Instead, he sees guns, American guns, mounted where none should be. The ship's hull flashes with muzzle fire, tracing arcs across the water. The German captain curses, diving for depth. The ocean erupts with depth charges. What was once a defenseless convoy now fights back. Above the roar of battle, that sound endures. The deep hum of American engines, echoing like the heartbeat of a nation that refuses to be sunk. When war erupted across Europe in 1939, the Atlantic became the world's longest and deadliest front line. Britain, cut off from its colonies and allies, relied on the endless lifeline of merchant ships. Coal, food, oil, weapons, all carried across waters patrolled by Germany's lethal U-boat fleet. The Battle of the Atlantic was not fought with glory or fanfare. It was a slow, grinding war of attrition, where steel and endurance mattered more than medals. By 1941, the numbers were staggering. German submarines were sinking Allied cargo ships faster than they could be built. Entire convoys vanished into the deep. Each freighter lost meant fewer tanks for North Africa, fewer rations for London, fewer shells for the Russian front. It seemed inevitable. The Atlantic lifeline would break. Then America entered the war. The U.S. Merchant Marine and Navy faced an urgent truth. Traditional shipbuilding could not keep pace with destruction. A revolution was needed, not just in weaponry but in production itself. The answer came in the form of the Liberty ship, a simple, boxy cargo vessel designed to be built faster than the enemy could sink it. Its heartbeat was unmistakable, the steady hum of mass production, echoing from every American shipyard. Across the American coastline, a new kind of war factory emerged. From the icy docks of Maine to the warm bays of California, shipyards roared with the rhythm of engines and hammers. Henry J. Kaiser, an industrial visionary, broke every rule of traditional shipbuilding. Instead of crafting ships by hand over months, his teams built them like automobiles, modular sections welded together, assembled by tens of thousands of workers who had never seen the ocean before. Men and women, many still learning the art of welding, worked around the clock. Sparks flew like stars over the docks. What once took a year to build now took weeks, sometimes days. The Liberty ship was not elegant, but it was unstoppable. Cheap, fast, and reliable, it carried 10,000 tons of cargo and bristled with defensive guns, 3-inch cannons, 20-millimeter Oerlikons, and machine nests ready to meet the enemy. To the Germans, these vessels had been easy targets. To the Americans, they became the floating proof that democracy could outbuild tyranny. Every engine that roared to life carried the same message: we will not slow down. And through every convoy, across every ocean, the same sound pulsed through steel and storm. The engine's hum, steady as freedom itself. Life aboard a Liberty ship was a paradox of routine and terror. The sailors who manned them were not professional warriors. Many were former dockhands, farmers, and clerks, who suddenly found themselves crossing oceans haunted by submarines. Each voyage was a gamble. They slept in cramped bunks beside vibrating bulkheads, the hum of the engines their only constant companion. That sound meant life. It meant the ship still moved, that no torpedo had found them yet. Yet fear was a quiet passenger. Convoys stretched across the Atlantic in rigid silence. Each ship's light blacked out against the night. Men listened to the sea more than they spoke, waiting for the sharp crack of a torpedo or the distant cry of "submarine spotted." Still, they sailed, because each Liberty ship carried not just cargo, but conviction, steel, grain, ammunition, and the promise of endurance. What made these ships remarkable was not their power, but their purpose. They were built to carry civilization through chaos. German commanders mocked them at first, calling them ugly ducklings. But soon, even the Kriegsmarine began to take notice. These ducks had teeth. And beneath that unbroken thrum of diesel and determination, America's quiet advantage grew louder every mile. From the enemy's perspective, the change was disorienting. In 1942, U-boat commanders still saw the Atlantic as their hunting ground. They had prowled it freely, their periscopes slicing through fog and moonlight. But by 1943, reports coming back to Berlin carried a new tone: shock. These once defenseless freighters were now firing back. Their convoys moved with discipline, their decks bristling with gun crews who no longer panicked at the sight of a periscope's wake. Behind this transformation was an industrial miracle. In the United States, shipyards no longer built ships. They produced them. Assembly lines turned out Liberty ships like clockwork. Women welded steel plates, teenagers drove cranes, and engineers designed new anti-submarine weapons faster than the Kriegsmarine could adapt. To the Germans, this was a logistical nightmare. They could not understand how a nation across the ocean could replace what was lost almost instantly. For every ship sunk, 3 more appeared. The unbroken rhythm of construction matched the hum of engines at sea, a sound that carried from the foundries to the front lines. By 1943, the message was unmistakable. The Atlantic no longer belonged to the hunter. The hunted were now striking back. By mid-1943, the ocean itself seemed to shift allegiance. The convoys that once crept timidly across gray waters now moved with guarded confidence. Overhead, American patrol planes swept wide circles, their radar scanning through mist and darkness. Destroyer escorts prowled the edges, sonar pinging deep into the cold abyss. And at the heart of it all steamed the Liberty ships, sturdy, armed, unrelenting, each one a symbol of America's new maritime will. The Germans were unprepared for this transformation. Their U-boats surfaced expecting chaos, yet found organized convoys with overlapping fields of fire. Radio operators aboard Allied ships now used encrypted communication, directing air and sea responses within minutes. The hunter became the hunted. The engine's hum, once a desperate plea for speed, had become the sound of control. It vibrated through every deck plate, through every sailor's chest, a reminder that technology and discipline now ruled the Atlantic. When Admiral Donitz reviewed the mounting U-boat losses in the spring of 1943, he realized the truth. Germany's invisible weapon had been outbuilt, outthought, and outlasted. Convoy after convoy reached Britain intact. What steel could not defend, industry did. And beneath the endless horizon, those Liberty ships kept moving, steady, mechanical, and free. The ocean no longer belonged to fear. The most striking proof came in September 1942, months before the tide fully turned. The Liberty ship SS Stephen Hopkins was alone in the South Atlantic when she sighted the German commerce raider Steer, a warship armed with 6-inch guns. By every rule of naval combat, the freighter should have surrendered or fled. Instead, Captain Paul Buck ordered his men to fight. The Hopkins gunners fired until the decks burned beneath their feet. Each recoil rattled the hull. Each shell struck with desperate precision. The Steyer's gunners responded with fury, tearing into the cargo ship's bridge and engines. Yet the Liberty ship refused to die quietly. Its engine's hum, though fading, kept time with every volley. America's defiance made mechanical. When the smoke cleared, both ships were sinking. The German raider went down first, silenced by a vessel it had dismissed as helpless. Survivors from the Steyr would later report disbelief, how an inferior cargo ship had fought a warship to destruction. For Germany's naval command, it was a warning. America's factories had turned even merchantmen into weapons. For the Allies, it was vindication, that courage and engineering could fuse into victory. The heartbeat of industry now echoed louder than fear itself. In the months that followed, The Atlantic changed from a graveyard into a highway. Convoy routes once marked by wreckage now glittered with the steady lights of arriving ships. Between 1943 and 1944, Liberty ships carried more than two-thirds of all the cargo sustaining Britain and the Allied fronts. For every vessel lost, American shipyards launched 3 more. The Germans called it Die Endlos Flut, the endless flood. U-boat crews, once hailed as the elite of the Reich, found themselves hunted and exhausted. Allied air patrols spotted them before they could strike, while sonar-guided depth charges forced them deeper than their hulls could bear. The Battle of the Atlantic, the longest campaign of the war, was being decided not by admirals or aces, but by welders, engineers, and machinists working thousands of miles away. The Liberty ship's silhouette became a moving emblem of what industrial democracy could achieve. It was not perfect, slow, square, and often leaking, but it was present everywhere, at every port, every tide. To Allied soldiers fighting in Europe and the Pacific, it meant one thing: supplies would arrive. And through every one of those vessels pulsed that steady, reassuring vibration, the engine's hum, the sound of a nation that refused to stop producing, refused to surrender, refused to rest until the seas were free. By the war's end in 1945, more than 2,700 Liberty ships had been built, an industrial miracle unmatched in history. They carried tanks to North Africa, food to Britain, munitions to Russia, and hope to every front that still burned. For many sailors, that quiet engine's hum became the sound of victory itself, a reminder that endurance, not elegance, had saved civilization. German officers who inspected captured Liberty ships after the war often expressed disbelief. The vessels were crude, yes, but astonishingly practical. Every bolt, every plate, every pipe had been designed to do one thing: keep moving. What the Third Reich had sought through precision engineering, America had achieved through overwhelming efficiency. The Liberty ship was not beautiful. It was democratic. Anyone could build it. Anyone could sail it. And together, they could win. When the guns fell silent, many of these ships carried refugees, relief supplies, and reconstruction materials. Others rusted in quiet harbors, their steel hulls still echoing faintly with the memory of their mission. The Liberty ship had outlasted the storm it was born into. And as the last convoys docked safely in Europe, the same rhythm that once beat across the Atlantic, the hum of engines, the song of industry, now faded into peace, leaving behind the unmistakable proof that freedom could be manufactured. One weld, one voyage, one heartbeat at a time. When historians speak of the American arsenal of democracy, they often name the tanks, the bombers, the mighty carriers that crossed the Pacific. But history's truest monument to that phrase did not bear guns upon its birth. It was forged in ordinary shipyards, built by ordinary hands, powered by an extraordinary belief that collective effort could outlast destruction. The Liberty ship was not an icon of glory. It was an instrument of endurance. Its story begins not with admirals or generals, but with riveters, welders, and engine crews who learned as they worked. Teenagers welding steel beside grandfathers who had survived the Great Depression. Women in overalls driving cranes while their sons fought overseas. The echo of the engine's hum united them all, a shared sound that carried across coasts, shipyards, and seas. It was the sound of determination turning into destiny. To the Germans who once commanded the Atlantic, that hum became a haunting reminder. Each time they sank a Liberty ship, more would follow. Each loss was temporary, each replacement stronger. They came not from one port, but from an entire continent of labor and resolve. That was America's real secret. Not a single weapon, but a culture that could transform every failure into momentum. After the war, many Liberty ships were scrapped, sold, or forgotten. But in their quiet remains, rusting in distant harbors, they still held the echo of what they once symbolized. The will of free people, unified by purpose, able to turn scarcity into abundance. The hum of those engines had been the pulse of a nation in motion, and even when silenced, it left behind a rhythm that never truly stopped. Every revolution of those pistons told a story, that liberty is not maintained by strength alone, but by work, by creation, by ordinary people who refuse to stand still. The Liberty ship proved that victory could be built from the hands of millions, each contributing a single spark of effort to a storm of production that no tyranny could match. And as the final chapter of that war closed, the world learned something profound. Freedom has its own machinery. It moves with a patient, unbroken rhythm, quiet, steady, enduring. Like the engine's hum that once echoed through the North Atlantic, it reminds us still that true power lies not in conquest, but in the capacity to build, to sustain, and to carry hope across even the darkest seas.